Hi, everybody. We're on our last section of Section A, IXL. This is for Algebra 1, and it's classifying numbers. Looks like it's a new one, so let's give it a try. Which of the following describe 4? Select all that apply. So 4 is an integer. 4 is a natural number. That is 1, 2, 3, the things we count. It is, of course, a real number, and it is a rational number. It is all 4 of these, so we're supposed to select them all. Which of the following is a natural number? That are the numbers that we count. I kind of think of them as the caveman numbers. 0 is not included. Naturally, we start counting 1, 2, 3 because they're natural. 2 was the only natural number. Which of the following are rational? A lot of people mess this one up. 0 is rational because 0 over 1 is a ratio. Let me show you what I mean. Any number you can write as a ratio is a rational number. And 0 is a super rational number because 0 over 2 is also 0. And so is 0 over 3 and just about anything else. So 0 is not only a rational number, it's a super rational number. 1 is, of course, 1 over 1, which is also a ratio, which is a rational number. What? Oh, rational. 1.32, repeating, is 1 in 32/99. Sorry about that. Helps if I'm actually paying attention to what I'm doing. All right. Is the square root of 2 a whole number? No, it's not. 2 is a whole number. The square root of 2 is an irrational number. Which of the following describe 1/9? It is rational and it is real. That's it. 1 4/6, irrational. Now it is a infinite repeating decimal. It happens to be 1 2/3, which is 1 4/6 is equal to 1 2/3, which happens to be 1.666 repeating. Now that 6 repeats forever, but that's not irrational. It is definitely rational, and to prove it, we just have to write it as a ratio. That's 1 times 6 plus 4 is 10 over 6, or if you like, 5 over 3. That makes it rational. So is it irrational? No. Which of the following is a rational number? This one is a repeating decimal, but it definitely is. Remember, repeating is okay. Which of the following are integers? That's an integer. That's an integer. Is 9 over 4 a whole number? No. Whole numbers are integers starting at 0. Which of the following describe 3? It is a real number. It is a natural number, and it is a rational number. Irrational. No, it is not. It is a repeating, infinitely repeating decimal that does repeat itself. Sevenths are kind of ugly. This happens to be 7.1, and then let's see. Well, I'm just gonna let it go. I think it's 1.4, and then let's see. 2 gives me 2, and 6 gives me 8, and it keeps going. But it does repeat itself eventually. Eventually, it becomes a repeating decimal. Is it irrational? No. Seven over 4 is rational. It is a real number, and it is rational. Which of the following are whole numbers? 44, 62, and 0 is the smallest whole number. Natural numbers, neither one of these are perfect squares, so they're irrational. 68 is the only natural number. Is -3 a rational number? Again, be careful. Ratio is -23 is a ratio. It's -23/1, which makes it rational. Which of the following are irrational? The only one is the square root of 44 because 44 is not a perfect square. Which of the following are whole numbers? Now, this one's a little ugly looking, but this is the square root of 1. So the square root of 4/4 is, sorry, the square root continues, is 1. So it's a whole number, as is the 0, as is the 10. The square root of 2 is not. Which of the following describe pi? It's irrational, and of course it's real, and that's it. What else do we have here? Natural, that would be 3. 0 is not a natural number. The square root of 1/9, a rational number. So the square root of 1/9 can be separated out. The square root of 1 over the square root of 9. Since both of these are perfect squares, the square root of 1 is 1, because 1 times 1 is 1, and 3 times 3 is 9. So 1/3 is a rational number. Is the square root of 1/4 an integer? No, it's not. The square root of 1/4 is 1/2, or 0.5, but it is not an integer. 1/4, the square root of 1/4 is 1/2, which is real, rational, and that's it. It is not a whole number or a natural number. Which of the following is a natural number? The square root of 4 is 2. Now that's rational, and that one is rational, and that one is rational, but none of them are natural. The only natural number is the square root of 4. Which of the following are irrational? Now this one's a little freaky. You have to be a little bit careful, because if it had said something like we'll look at some decimals that are repeating, but this one is 3/5, and both of these are non-perfect squares. So this one is irrational, and that is it. Is pi a real number? Yes, it is. Real numbers are pretty much everything you've ever heard of. The only ones that are not real numbers are the lateral or imaginary numbers, like the square root of -4, because there's no real number that if you multiply it times itself, it gives you a negative. This happens to be 2i, and it's that's called a imaginary or complex number. Pi is a real number. Yes, it is. So the following is 5/5. Since 5/5 is equal to 1, it is natural, rational, whole, and it happens to be an integer as well. Irrational. The absolute value doesn't affect it any. The square root of 7 is still an infinite non-repeating decimal. And this one you need to be careful of. The square root of 0.48 is 48/100. And I wanted to show you an example where this would be not irrational. Now this one happens to be the square root of 48 over the square root of 100. Now that square root of 100 is 10. But the square root of 48, since this is a non-perfect square, this one is irrational. If this had said the square root of 0.49, then it would be the square root of 49, over the square root of 100, which is equal to 7 over 10, which is a rational number. So this one is not rational, irrational. This one is a rational number. This one is an irrational. So square root of 48 can be reduced, but it can't, it is an irrational number. This one is a repeating decimal, which is 7 2/9, which happens to be rational. That is 65 over 9. And since it can be written as a ratio, we call it rational. 8 over 2 is even a natural number, so that's no good. So there we go. Any more? Oh, one more. Natural number. Negatives are non-natural numbers. Now this happens to be -1, which is not a natural number. The square root of 10 is irrational. 6 over 3 happens to be 2. And the square root of 63 over 100 is definitely irrational. This one is rational, but it's not natural. This is the only natural number. And the square root of 9 over 1 is 3, which is a natural number, a real number, and an integer. Is -3 a rational number? Well, -3 over 1, sure enough. And there we go, all done. Hopefully you all will get them all right.